Morning. It is. Hold on one second before we commence. All right. Good morning. All right. It's 9:32 a.m. and we'd like to call the South Coast AQMD Hearing Board meeting to order. We have multiple hearings on the docket today, and at this moment in time, we'll move very quickly to take the consent item, which is Universal City Studios LLC case number 4935-21. Universal provided several documents. We'll mark the exhibits. So we do have the petition. Quite sure members of the board, if you have that in your possession, you reviewed that. The first exhibit we'll mark as number 1.
Which is
the stipulation.
Okay.
Stipulation to place matter on consent calendar. Okay, and then we'll mark the next exhibit, which is declaration of Joseph C. Bellis, B-E-L-L-A-S, in support of petition for short variance. And then the final document, which is from Universal City Studios LLC, is the findings and decisions of the hearing board and proposed order. We'll mark that as exhibit number 3. All right, members of the board, any discussion, deliberation on the matter?
Yeah, I'd like to start, if I may. This facility has been, Universal has been with us, I think, looking at the order 21 times. And in 2018, when I first joined, I had taken it off consent because of concern of the fog liquid they were using. They did some industrial hygiene testing, and it was determined to be safe. So they routinely request a variance because they will violate District Rule 401 and Health and Safety Code 41701, because the fog machine that they use, about 89 of them, will create fog which will exceed the opacity standard in the rule 401 B1B. So it's actually, this is about the only facility that asks us for a variance. I think the other amusement parks that uses fog machine, but they don't appear before us. But nevertheless, they've laid out, as in the past, all the 6 findings that they will meet for us to grant a short variance. They're asking for a short variance about over 69 days, so it's less than 90 days for the short variance. So starting on let's see, it's starting later, not August 13th through November 5th. So so I have no issues in making the findings, and I can go through that if at the appropriate time, make the 6 findings and make the motion if necessary.
Thank you, Mr. Balakapalam. Ms. Verdugo-Peralta.
Thank you. They do come to us every year because of their I can't remember the name of this, the Night of the Terrors that they have over there. I was hoping that by this time, because they've come before us so many times, that they would look into the non-emissions type of technology that Disneyland utilizes. I've inspected on the back lot of Disneyland when they went from the type of fireworks that were combustible and had emissions and were falling on the cars and homes of the people surrounding the area. So on behalf of AQMD, I went out there and inspected it. And they are now utilizing a technology that is air, it's compressed air. So, and they did not patent it. they let all of the other amusement parks utilize that technology as well. Now, whether this could be utilized for a fog machine, I don't know, but I would think that they would at least try to look into it and see if it's in some way, shape, or form, if they're able to retrofit it for the fog machine. But I haven't seen anything to date. I don't have any problem with going ahead and accepting and voting for the 6 findings. I think they do mean that they have done everything other than what I've just mentioned in their power to notify us, to let us know the dates and how many nights it's going to be occurring. So with that, I will also the request for the short variance.
Any additional comments from the other 2 board members? Okay,
No.
Mr. Balakapalan, sir.
Or if I may add, I
Go
think
right
they've been trying to get the district to amend the rule so they can be exempt, but it has not occurred. So they try they communicate with the district to see if they can get an exemption from 401 for the fog machines, but they've not been successful so far.
All right, Mr. Balakapalan, would you like to proffer a motion?
Yeah, let me go ahead and make quickly the 6 finding that the petitioner will be in violation of Rule 401 and Health and Safety Code 41701. So that's the first finding, and then that the non-compliance beyond the wisdom control for the special effects, they need the fog machines, and there's nothing available, but they're using, so it's beyond their reasonable control to have an Halloween scary night without the fog machine. So it's beyond their control at this point, unless they come up with some other new technology to create that eerie feeling or whatever feeling, and the scary night feeling that they want to affect. The closing and or taking will be without a corresponding benefit. I think the harm to the petitioner, we saw the number of millions of dollars they lose and how many employees they will have to lay off if they don't have this special event. Halloween night, I guess it's a moneymaker for them, the Universal Studio. Even though there's opacity, it hasn't occurred outside the property boundary. It's all inside the facility. So there's no harm to the residents or nearby businesses. Petition is given consideration curtailing operation, so they will use operate at a certain temperature. There's a limit on how many gallons they can use per day and how many nights they will use that, and they will reduce the excessive emission to the maximum extent possible. So they will be calculating excess emission based on how many days they exceed 100% capacity, and then pay accordingly the fee. So they will monitor and quantify emission. So I think, again, it's well laid out in their petition also, the 6 findings. So I believe I can make the 6 findings. So let me go ahead and make the motion. So in the matter of Universal Studios LLC case number 4935-21, I move that we grant a short variance starting, I think they gave August 13th and ending on November 5th from Rule 401 and Health and Safety Code 41701 for 82 fog machines that is located at the facility in let's see, it's at 100 Universal City Plaza in Universal City. The conditions of the variance as forth is set in exhibit number 3, which is the proposed finding and decision document. There, the excess emissions, which will be based on the exceedance of opacity limit to be determined, and they will pay the fees accordingly. So with that, I have addressed my motion.
I'll second
Is there a
that.
second? And before we vote, I just wanted to make certain there's no one online providing testimony on this matter.
There are no raised hands.
Okay, and send let the record also reflect that no one has sought recognition to provide public comments relative to California Government Code 54954.3 on any matter that they so desire, whether it's on the agenda and or not on the agenda. All right, it's been moved to second, Ms. Kaplan, second by Ms. Verdugo Prado. Any further question or discussion on this motion? Hearing none, Dr. Abraham, your vote?
Aye.
Ms. Macklin?
Aye.
Ms. Verdugo Prado?
Aye.
Mr. Kaplan?
Aye.
Ali, an affirmative vote, the matter is approved unanimously and closed. All right, we're gonna move down to another scheduled hearing, which is South Coast AQMD versus Amorisco Chiquita Energy LLC, case number 6143-4. Petitioner in this case is South Coast Air Quality Management District, represented by Catherine Roberts.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, and then
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Potash of Latham and Watkins on behalf of Amoresco.
beautiful. So just so we're clear, there were some exhibits that were sent to the board this morning, correct? And those exhibits,
I believe it was earlier last week.
yes. So those exhibits are,
The district should have submitted one unopposed motion to dismiss.
yes,
And I believe that's the only exhibit for this case.
yes, that's exactly correct. And so we'll consider this to be exhibit number.
What?
No, wait a minute.
It's from the district, so it might be A, I think.
But if they're the petitioners at one,
From the district, I think.
No, there, would this one be 4 or would this one be 9, Miss Thomas? This is 4 or 9, I don't have the minute order in front of me, but it's not 1, it's 4 or 9.
Do you have the minute order?
Yeah, this is 4.
or
I remember it. Memory's still decent, okay? All right, why don't you go with your opening statements?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The district in this case, as you recall, submitted a petition for an order for abatement and likewise submitted a dismissal that was ultimately voluntarily dismissed by Amoresco of a regular variance for the same matter, which is essentially violation of several different permit conditions and district rules relating to emission of excess sulfur coming from landfill gas combusted by Amoresco Chiquita Energy as part of their normal operation. At that time, and it has been clear for the duration of both their variance and this abatement order, the root cause of this is ultimately the content of sulfur in the landfill gas that is coming from Chiquita Canyon landfill. At all times, Chiquita Canyon landfill is owned, operated, and entirely controlled by a third party that is not a party to this case. Amoresco Chiquita Energy does contract to receive landfill gas from the Chiquita Canyon landfill, but does not otherwise control the landfill in any sense. After the district submitted this petition, there were changed circumstances at Chiquita Canyon landfill. That case is an ongoing matter, and there are regular changed circumstances. The changed circumstances was the characterization of their landfill gas condensate, which is essentially the liquid forming from the landfill gas that Amoresco accepts. Due to that change in character, Amoresco notified the district that what it qualified as a temporary pause in accepting any of the landfill gas from Chiquita Canyon. That shut down Amoresco's operations. And at that time, the district went forward with the abatement order because it was described as temporary, and Amoresco maintained that it may resume operations. And if it did resume operations, all parties agreed that those operations would violate excess sulfur limits. Since the abatement order has been issued, Amoresco has determined on its own voluntarily that it will no longer operate until it is able to operate in full compliance with all district rules, particularly the excess sulfur rules that the abatement order was issued to correct. As a result of that, the district entered into a settlement negotiation that contractually obligates Amoresco to that, that holds them to that promise. They will no longer operate until they are operating in full compliance with all of the sulfur requirements. Because of that settlement agreement, the district believes there is no further need for the abatement order because there are no further violations to abate. Because of that, that is ultimately Amoresco's decision to choose not to operate, but because they have made that decision, they no longer need an abatement order, which was essentially addressed conditions that would monitor and report and try and limit the excess sulfur. But because there will be no more excess sulfur, there is simply no need to go further with an abatement order. So the district has submitted the motion to dismiss. It is unopposed by Amoresco in this case, and the district would submit on that motion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning again, Chair Lee and members of the hearing board, and thank you very much for your time today. And to second District Council's discussion, Amoresco is a renewable gas to energy facility co-located at the Chiquita Canyon landfill. When it is operating, which as District Council shared, it has not been since February, but when it is operating, it takes excess landfill gas and uses it to create renewable energy. As District Council shared, the facility is not currently operating. The costs of operation have significantly risen as a result of the changed character of the landfill gas. And as District Council noted, the facility's entered into a settlement agreement with the district that includes an enforceable obligation prohibiting the facility from operating unless and until it can comply with sulfur emissions requirements applicable to the facility via district rules and the district permit that the facility possesses. With respect to the order for abatement that the district issued in February, Amoresco does not oppose the district's motion to dismiss. In fact, Amoresco believes that it's the proper next step under the Health and Safety Code, Section 42451. In order to issue an order for abatement, the hearing board needs to make a finding that there's violations of district rules or relevant health and safety code provisions. District Rule 806 mirrors the Health and Safety Code provision 42451, and where the facility is not operating and there's no violation of emissions requirements, Amoresco submits that the appropriate next step would be to dismiss the order for abatement. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Roberts. I assume you have no
No
witnesses?
witnesses.
No witnesses?
Correct.
Members of the board, Ms. Verdugo Peralta.
Thank you. It's really unfortunate that a company has to go out of business. I hate seeing that. Were they your only client, your only customer?
So Amoresco's facility takes landfill gas only from the Chiquita Canyon landfill, and in no way, shape, or form does Amoresco intend to go out of business. They have every intention, as soon as they can get compliant landfill gas, of resuming operations. They're doing everything in their power to maintain the facility and to ensure that they can promptly restart. And in fact, Amoresco has discussed with the district protocols for restarting the facility as soon as they're able to get compliant landfill gas again.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you very much.
Yes, I want to applaud Amoresco for taking the step that's necessary to protect the environment and to ensure that there is compliance, and if not, you can't operate. And I appreciate that. And also the willingness of the district, and Amoresco to enter into a motion to dismiss rather than go through a lengthy hearing on really what is essentially the right course of action to take. So thank you for doing that. I am pleased to hear Amoresco is not going out of business. I didn't assume you were. You were just in a position where it's either not comply or comply. So thank you for that. I have no further questions. I think I can support the motion to dismiss the petition and abatement order. And unless there's anything else, Chair, I would move forward and call for the question.
I do have a comment, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Actually, I'm a little concerned actually of this because we were told repeatedly, that Amoresco while it was operating, was actually creating basically a vacuum, pulling the gas. And so it helps reduce the problems at Chiquita because of the elevated temperature and so forth. So there is a beneficial with Ameresco operating. Now we are going to the community in Chiquita on the 17th. And then, this situation with Ameresco, unfortunately shutting down, it's going to make the situation, from what we heard, even worse. So while I know this is a business decision, but I would think that because there was an order abatement, you could operate under the order abatement. And it was a question of excess emission fees. The board has the to reduce that or waive it or whatever. But I think the continued operation, the way I see it, of Ameresco, unless there's some really real problem, benefits Chiquita, benefits the community at large at Chiquita, because that creates, as we heard, the pull, the draw from the landfill reduces everything, and then there's a beneficial use. Instead of, what is the alternative now? Where's the gas going to go? They have to flare it. There's no beneficial use in flaring. The emissions will probably be the same or more with the flare, so that's the concern I have, is now suddenly you've taken away one of the mitigation source that Chiquita has, and we have allowed you to operate, under an order abatement. But now, that avenue is removed for Chiquita. That's going to potentially make even worse the situation in Chiquita and make it even worse for the community. So what are you going to tell them on the 17th? I mean, it's a business issue. I respect that, but I thought that maybe some other way they'd be crafted so you can still operate under, even though under an order abatement, but still have a functional, operation, the draw and the reduce the vacuum and, help Chiquita out, and at the same time, not lose money, of course, But
Okay.
so I don't know if there was a cost benefit analysis, because there is a beneficial use of the flare. I mean, the landfill gas in creating electricity instead of being just burnt away.
Okay, so after you answer this, we're going right into closing because everyone has spoken. So go right ahead, sir.
And thank you for those comments. And one thing I'll note is, over time, since Ameresco initially identified non-compliance with landfill gas sulfur limits and originally petitioned the hearing board for variance coverage in February of 2023, there have been changed circumstances at the landfill. They have significantly increased flaring capacity to prevent landfill surface emissions, and that landfill flaring capacity was not in effect at the time of the initial variance petition in February 2023. Ameresco was doing everything that they could to be a good citizen and a good neighbor to the community, and it's become uneconomic to continue operating with the landfill gas of the composition that it currently has is deleterious for the Ameresco equipment. It's led to a lot of additional maintenance and significantly increased the cost of operation. So while Ameresco is of the view that it would be better if it could continue to operate as it does at so many other facilities across the country, Ameresco's current view is it simply can't operate economically with the current gas composition, but they continue to monitor the situation. They intend to do so going forward, and they want to come back online as soon as possible. The difficulty is this gas composition is unique, and it's been their systems were just not constructed to operate on gas of this quality.
All right, thank you. Ms. Roberts, closing.
Sure. So the district greatly appreciates Mr. Polan's questions. I think those are pertinent. But I think it's also important to consider for this particular motion that nothing in the abatement order actually required Ameresco to operate. And the district nor the hearing board has the authority to actually require them to operate. Even though we would consider it beneficial in some circumstances, we cannot force them to do that. That is ultimately a decision for Amoresco. The district does believe that decision from Amoresco is not unreasonable given the changed circumstances at Chiquita Canyon landfill. As the board is probably aware, other regulatory agencies have characterized the landfill gas condensate currently as hazardous waste. And that is a significant change circumstance from the landfill gas that Amoresco typically receives from a landfill to combust. The district also agrees with counsel for the respondent that at Chiquita Canyon landfill, there has been an increase in flaring capacity brought on site specifically to deal with this issue. And it is known to Chiquita Canyon landfill that Amoresco Chiquita Energy has not and will not operate and has not operated since February. So that circumstance is known between the parties, even though they are third parties to one another. What they are doing is known among both parties. So the district believes that the motion to dismiss is still the prudent course. I agree that in an ideal world, every odor mitigation, including Amoresco being online, would be ideal, but that's not the circumstance we find ourselves in. And it is the district's position that there is not a need to keep this abatement order that effectively wouldn't do anything anyway. If they're going to not operate, they could not operate even if you kept the abatement order. So the district believes the more prudent path right now is actually to dismiss this abatement order, and then they can resume operations once they're fully compliant. Thank you.
Thank you. Just Ms. Thomas, Madam Clerk, just wanted to confirm that there's no one seeking to provide testimony relative to this matter.
There are no raised hands.
Let the record clearly reflect that no one has sought recognition to provide testimony relative to the matter. We'll move very quickly to deliberation. Members of the board who would like to start first on deliberation?
Would you like a motion?
Sure.
Okay, I'll make the motion to dismiss the petition and terminate the abatement order based upon the record and the testimony or the representations by both the district and counsel for Amoresco. So the motion would be to uphold the dismissal.
Second.
It's been properly moved by Ms. Conniger-Macklin, second by Dr. Abraham. Any further question or discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Dr. Abraham.
Aye.
Ms. Conniger-Macklin.
Aye.
Ms. Ducal-Prata.
Aye.
Mr. Balakapapa.
Aye.
Ali votes aye. The matter is unanimously approved and the motion to dismiss the petition is in full effect and the abatement order is hereby terminated. Thank you very kindly. Good day, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Going to roll right into the next case. South Coast Air Quality Management District versus Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority. The petitioner is South Coast Air Quality Management District. The representative for the district is Catherine Roberts. Is MTA present? Are they on Zoom or?
I believe their counsel is on Zoom. If I could have them have Mr. Ron Stan moved over to panelists, I believe he would. And I believe he may also have a witness. He can clarify that.
Okay, so while we're doing that, we do have a few exhibits. And the exhibits, so the exhibit you did provide was the proposed findings and decisions for a modified stipulated order for abatement.
Correct.
That'll be Exhibit 8. And then MTA, I do believe, how you doing, Mr. Stan?
Good morning, members of the hearing board.
Ron Stam, S-T-A-M-M, S-T-A, okay, Mr. Stam, I thought it was Stan, okay. Mr. Stam, did you provide any exhibits, just for the record?
No, we did not.
Okay. So the summary of changes to vehicle replacement schedule provided
It's
by?
the districts, yes.
Okay, so that would be exhibit number 9.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Ms. Roberts, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, members of the board again. The matter for today is an abatement order under the district's Rule 1196, which we colloquially refer to as one of our fleet rules. This rule regulates heavy-duty vehicles in particular, and public entities are subject to this rule. It regulates them as an entire fleet. That is why we refer to them as fleet rules rather than a single vehicle. It requires the fleets, when they purchase vehicles after their fleet is of a certain size. This board previously heard this matter and granted an abatement order that was stipulated to by both parties against LA Metro. LA Metro, like many public facilities, were found to be in non-compliance. District Rule 1196 uses a bunch of fleet rule regulated vehicles for provision of public services. They use these vehicles to maintain their own vehicles that are used in public transit. They use these vehicles for maintaining their own services as a public agency. As a result of that, the district believes the best way to issue these orders for abatement is to come up with a schedule that doesn't prohibit use of non-compliant vehicles all at once so as to prevent harm to the public. Essentially, if these vehicles were not allowed to be used at all, that would reduce the amount of services that are rendered to the public, and the district believes that's unwarranted. The parties stipulated to a fairly lengthy vehicle replacement schedule. The main highlight for LA Metro specifically, as the board will recall, is that the parties negotiated and agreed to an electric vehicle pilot study of hybrid vehicles. LA Metro, because they operate a high rail system, has a number of vehicles that are subject not only to district rules for air emissions, but are also subject to California regulations relating to the types of engines that can be used in tunnels on rails, and specifically that precludes a lot of otherwise compliant vehicle types because of the flashpoint of those vehicle types. So the parties negotiated an EV pilot study to see if electric vehicles could be used in this use case. The parties agreed that this has never been done before, and it would take time to do. You'll see here today that one of the modifications that the parties are requesting is a delay in that study. It is being pushed back to procure the vehicle, and I think you'll hear today in testimony the reasons for that. The respondent has been working with various manufacturers. That does take time. The parties believe that extending the time for this study is still warranted. There are still valuable lessons to be learned from doing such a study, and potentially, if this study is effective, it would change the type of vehicles they would purchase for additional high rail vehicles and get even more emission reductions. As a reminder, Rule 1196 does require them to purchase electric vehicles, but doing so is directly in the spirit of achieving what the governing board wanted in getting those types of vehicles. The parties also have prepared a status report that discusses a few other changes that are requested as a result of the district's review of the respondents' status reports in this matter. And the district will have a witness with an exhibit to explain and walk through the summary of those changes. We believe respondent will walk through the kind of rationale why some of those changes are justified. But ultimately, the parties here today do have a fully stipulated proposed modification that we believe is warranted, and good cause exists to issue that modification as stipulated to by the parties. The district will close with noting that it will have one witness today, who is our program supervisor, Mr. Brian Cho, who oversees the implementation of our fleet rules. Thank you.
Thank you very kindly, Mr. Stam. Floor is yours, sir, for your opening statements.
Thank you. We've worked closely with District Council Catherine Roberts in modifying the vehicle replacement schedule and the proposed findings and decision. We fully support these revisions to the replacement schedule. We've made excellent progress, we believe, thus far since the order was issued in replacing thus far, I believe, 19 non-compliant vehicles. and soon we will be replacing more. We're working in a difficult environment in the market where supply chain issues and unavailability of materials has somewhat delayed our ability to comply with all of the initial dates in the schedule, but we're making good progress, and we intend to continue to make good progress and ultimately replace all of the 52 non-compliant vehicles that were identified in the initial order. I do have with me today, appearing separately, Metro Senior Director for Non-Revenue Fleet Maintenance, Alan Tang, and perhaps he could also be added as a panelist so he could address the board if needed. Thank you.
Thank you. What's your last name? Is it T-A-N-G?
Yes, T-A-N-G.
Okay, there we go. All right, so at this moment in time, because we do have witnesses, why don't we have everyone to stand and we're going to take the oath. All right. And you have witnesses as well? Mr. Stam, you have witnesses because they're going to have to confirm that they took the oath electronically.
Okay.
So can they hear us? Dave, can we move Mr. Tang over? Okay, well, we won't hold the process. We'll just go ahead and just take the oath on the individuals before us. Do you solemnly state under the penalty of perjury that the evidence that you shall give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you very kindly, sir. And so for the record, we will provide the oath for Mr. Tang once he is brought up on Zoom. All right, Ms. Roberts, the floor is yours.
Excuse me,
Thank you, Ms.
he is up. He just needs to unmute.
Will we see him visually?
Well, okay, now that he took his cap, okay.
Yes.
Okay, there are. So did all the individuals in the room, did you hear the oath?
Just me?
Okay, but were you able to take the oath or do you want me to administer it again?
I will be able to take the oath.
Okay, well, I'll just go ahead and administer it again because we're having a little difficulty hearing you. Do you solemnly state under the penalty of perjury that the evidence that you shall give in this matter should be the truth?
Yes.
Perfect. We have it on record. Thank you, sir. Ms. Roberts, again, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Cho, can I have you state and spell your name for the record, please?
Yes. Yes. My name is Brian Cho, Brian Choe.
Thank you. And you took the oath this morning?
Yes, I have.
Great. Could you tell us what is your title with the district?
I'm a program supervisor in Planning and Rule Division, overseeing the implementation of Fleet Rules program.
And how long have you been in that position?
Since early 2018.
And in your position, are you familiar with the respondent's heavy duty fleet?
Yes, I am.
Can you give us just kind of a brief background and explainer on Rule 1196? What kind of fleets does that rule regulate?
Rule 1196 regulates public fleet vehicles or the public fleets with 15 or more heavy-duty vehicles. So when we say heavy-duty vehicle, these are the vehicles with 14,000 pounds in GVWR or more.
So for fleets that are subject to this rule, what does the rule actually require?
The rule basically requires that any fleets that are subject to Rule 1196, when you're adding or forming a new fleet, you need to purchase or lease a rule-compliant vehicles. And what we mean by rule-compliant in the rule is either they are either gasoline fuel or the alt fuel like CNGs or the propane or EV even, or the third option is a dual fuel.
And when this abatement order started, how many vehicles did the district determine were non-compliant with Rule 1196 in LA Metro's fleet?
We had determined basically there were a total of 52 vehicles that were deemed non-compliant.
And so can you give us a brief background and explain what does the vehicle replacement schedule that was included as attachment A in the order for abatement actually require for LA Metro?
As shown in the attachment, the replacement schedule basically grouped all the non-compliant vehicles into 7 different categories. And each category had its own bid release date and delivery dates for the replacement vehicles, and also the removal date in case the vehicles are just being removed. And it also included, just wanted to note that it also included the demonstration of one EV high rail truck, which was something that we, basically fought hard to basically negotiate so that, will basically, in just a replacing with only the commercially available vehicle was not good enough. We wanted something more from the LA Metro, and the LA Metro graciously agreed to that. And that's included in the replacement schedule.
So as part of this abatement order, LA Metro is required to submit regular status reports to the district. Is that right?
Yes.
And have you reviewed the status reports that have been submitted by LA Metro in this case?
Yes, I have.
Have you also had any discussions with any staff for the respondents regarding their compliance with the abatement order in this case?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to ask, based on your review of those status reports and your discussions with the respondents, do you agree that there needs to be modifications overall to this order?
Yes, definitely.
So I'm going to share an exhibit that has been marked as Exhibit 9. For you. I'm going to hopefully pull it up on the screen so everyone should be able to see it. So to kind of orient us to this exhibit, is this exhibit kind of a modification of what is in of the table that is included as attachment A?
Yes, it is a modification to the current table in the I guess in the attachment A.
So starting from 4 columns over from the right, if we looked at that prior approved bid release date, is that the second to right column of the current abatement order showing when LA Metro was required to have a bid release for each vehicle?
Correct.
And the prior approved delivery date was when those vehicles were supposed to be delivered by?
Yes.
And what are the last 2 columns that are highlighted in yellow on this?
The last 2 column basically, signifies or identifies basically any changes to the delivery dates or the bid release dates if they are basically shown. If it's blank means there are no changes to the prior dates.
Okay, so just looking at that top row, so that first vehicle in the 2 right-hand columns, there's a blank for the bid release date. So that means the prior bid release date was the actual bid release date, but there's an update to the delivery date to say that that vehicle has been received. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I want to turn then to what is in the order category 3, which is the electric vehicle pilot study. Based on your discussions with staff and your review of their status reports, do you agree that there does need to be a modification to the bid release and delivery of this vehicle in category 3?
Yes.
Can you explain, and what is your understanding of why this has been delayed?
Based on my understanding and the discussions I had with the Metro staff is that the EV manufacturers they've been working with from the beginning, which is one of the prominent actually EV manufacturers. I'm not going to say the names, but they pulled out in the midstream. And this is common for a lot of EV demo projects that I've been involved in prior to taking over this team. I was a project manager for Technology Advancement Office, overseeing many EV demo projects involving heavy duty trucks. And in many cases, first of all, nothing goes as planned, as you can expect. And in some cases, some of the project demonstrator or the technology provider would pull out for various reasons. And this is probably what happened here. And so in midstream now, Metro had notified us, through the regular reporting and as well as the email updates. Hey, we lost the partner, so we're trying to find a new partner. But my understanding was, given that this is a specialty vehicle, this is a high rail truck. It's not a truck that only operates on the service street. It has a special gear underneath the chassis. That also allows them to operate on the railroad track. So it's like a dual mode. And because of that, number one, I guess the supplies are limited. It's not a big market, as you can imagine. And so to finding a partner who has to work with them to develop a new spec just for the metro rail, which I understand actually has a narrower curvature, basically tighter turning radius than the conventional railroad lines. So that was another wrinkle. So this has to be some specialty design or definitely engineering work that needs to be added to develop and demonstrate this EV truck. And so they were able to find a new vendor. They've been working with the new vendor, which is a local vendor. And they've been working to develop the new specs that could work on the metro line for this high rail platform. And unfortunately, that delayed the whole process. Now they are ready to release the bid. And once the bid is released to that contractor, it requires at least 18 months to 24 months for them to actually to deliver the final product. So given that timeline from now, that we can expect, basically the delay that was noted or proposed by the LA Metro.
So in your opinion, based on your experience, given that there would be almost a 2-year delay, is this pilot study with an EV still worth pursuing as part of this abatement order?
Yeah, in my opinion, it still is. As I said before, high rail trucks are specialty vehicles. So even though now there's a recently adopted state regulations requiring all the public fleets has to go zero emissions, at least by 27. The regulation also allows for a number of exemptions, especially for high specialty vehicles, because they understand these are essential vehicles providing the essential services, not in this case for the upkeeping the metro line, but for other public fleets also. And as well, these are small, like a niche market, as I said, which means if you leave it alone as it is, these are the last type of vehicle that any manufacturer will actually consider developing, because they don't want to spend a lot of engineering resources to develop basically vehicle which only is good for maybe a very small market for a few hundred. So they rather develop vehicles for delivery trucks like a UPS or even drayage trucks, which is when you look at the numbers, you're talking thousands or tens of thousands. So that's the difference. So that I think that because of that, we still want LA Metro. We appreciate LA Metro's effort to continue the effort to find, basically work with the partner to find and build a demo truck for this platform and for this use, which leads to obviously conversion of all these high rail trucks to EV eventually. And another thing I want to point out is because of the flashpoint requirement. Right now, the CNGs and gasoline trucks or any other like a propane trucks, which are considered clean fuel, will not be allowed to work for this type of vehicle because they have to work inside the tunnels on the ground. And so only option they really have is a diesel or the EV. So we definitely want to support their effort to find a solution for, with an EV platform eventually, which will lead to conversion of all the high rail trucks Metro has, or maybe even other railroad operators have, into an EV eventually. That's what we want to support.
So given that there's going to be a delay in the EV pilot study, I want to turn your attention to the second page of that exhibit and looking at Category 4 vehicles. If there's a delay in the EV pilot study, does that necessitate a delay in these Category 4 vehicles as well?
Yes, these 3 Category 4 trucks are the same type of a high rail lift truck as the demo truck. So, and also as part of the agreement, LA Metro agreed that if the demo truck proves to be successful, they'll at least consider, or more likely to replacing these 4 Category 4 vehicles with the same EV truck.
So they can't be replaced until they've completed kind of that
Yes,
demonstration.
naturally, yeah, they have to at least wait till the completion of the demo program and to see if it's something feasible and workable for their purpose, and they are to support their operation.
Okay. And lastly, I want to refer to some of what are Category 1 vehicles, which require replacement with CNG or compressed natural gas. Is that correct?
Yes.
As part of their status reporting and updates and discussions with you, did LA Metro notify you that they elected to replace 2 of those vehicles with gasoline vehicles rather than compressed natural gas vehicles?
Yes, we found that out from the latest report. Yes.
To the best of your understanding, what was the explanation that they provided to you for why that was?
Yeah, the main reason for was the lack of available CNG engine that can actually support the horsepower and the torque needs and the duty cycle they need to support. It needs to support. So what they were looking for was something a little more powerful. Unfortunately, what was available in the CNG arena, which was like about 6.7 liter engine, which is still available. Unfortunately, what they need was about mid-7 range, about 7.5, a liter engine with a cylinder with higher horsepower and more torque for their purposes. And so since they weren't able to find the CNG engine, they should have notified us before they placed, they swapped the CNG to gasoline and placed the order. Unfortunately, that's something that happened. We found out after the fact, and we basically called them on that, and they definitely, were sort of kind of caught off guard. And one of the reasons this happened was, later I found out, was unfortunately there was a change of personnel on the Metro side. The gentleman that we were working with from the beginning had since retired, and I believe the Tang took it over about a year ago. And unfortunately, there was miscommunication between the two. And so Mr. Tang didn't know that these vehicles are supposed to be CNG. All along, he was under the impression the gasoline engines were okay. And so the order was proceeded as planned, and he didn't basically spot the oversight until I basically notified them of the change.
So ultimately, under Rule 1196, even though the order required compressed natural gas, is a gasoline heavy-duty vehicle ultimately compliant with Rule 1196?
Yes, it is one of the compliant vehicle options.
Okay. So based on sort of all of the changes that we're discussing, have you recalculated the excess emissions related to this abatement order?
Yes, based on the revised schedules for like a high rail trucks as well as the EV demo trucks, the emissions that I've recalculated is now 4 tons of NOx and 0.09 ton of PM, which is about 20 to 25% increase for NOx and PM respectively, compared to what was already, what was calculated before.
So overall, in your opinion, based on the changes that we've walked through today, is this proposed order with these changes reasonable under the circumstances to ultimately get this facility back into full compliance with Rule 1196?
Yeah, based on my opinion, and given the current landscape of technologies out there, and the progress the LA Metro has so far made, I think that we're on the right track. And yes, we'd like to see more progress made, more accelerate pace. But we're dealing with the reality where sometimes technology development takes time. And it's something we learned that high rail, basically trucks are specialized, and the Metro rails lines are different from the traditional track, which requires additional work in terms of finding a developer or the vendor, and also basically to develop the specs. So based on all that, with the background, I think that the proposed order is reasonable and something we can support.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Stam on cross.
I have no questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Very kind, members of the board. Any questions of our good friend, Mr. Cho? Mr. Palakaplan.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair. I noticed when you mentioned all the alternate fuels, hydrogen was not in the mix. Do you know if they're considering hydrogen, or is that not a feasible?
Well, I think hydrogen, my opinion is that it also may have an issue with the flashpoint. Basically, it is. I think that's something I'll defer to Metro to address. But I guess for the same reason with the natural gas, posing on maybe flammability issues in the underground. Maybe I'm suspecting it might be the same thing.
And I understand the underground. What about the other above ground? Yeah, I mean, those are the high rail you're talking about, right?
Yeah, yes.
Which has the issue with
Right.
that. But what about, are they considering it for the others? Basis cleaners available?
For the other trucks, they already agreed, and if they were available, replace them all with the CNG. And at the time we were negotiating this agreement, there weren't any fuel cell or the hydrogen based vehicle that were either commercially available or at least in the horizon to be made available. And even as now, when I look at the landscape of hydrogen based vehicles, including fuel cell, I really don't see any available vehicles they could have considered even now for most cases. Like I said, a lot of times these are specialty vehicles for public fleets, and they usually work with the vendor who are like upfitters. So it's not something they just grab, buy a truck from a dealer lot from like Ford. A lot of times they'll have to add on like a lift or or some other equipment on top of the truck chassis or the platform they purchase first. So if the vendors or the outfitters are not providing, let's say, some sort of a special platforms using hydrogen, and it makes it harder for them to shop for those type of vehicle. But just to reiterate what I provided earlier, when we were negotiating this like 4 years ago, there weren't any hydrogen-based vehicles that we can consider for these vehicles, even for the for the other non-high rail vehicles.
Just a couple more questions. So the vehicles they replace the CNG with the gasoline. So this table should be updated to say, it was.
Yes, I agree. I think that's a good point.
The 2-1.
Yes, we need to update
1121 and 1126 should say gasoline.
Yes.
Okay. And then the order has been extended to 2028 towards the end, 6 months after the, when they're supposed to come into compliance. But I don't see any status hearing, after today. So do you think, even a report, not maybe a hearing like this, but what's the earliest? Because from what I see on this, for the high rail, they won't issue it the bid until 2025, maybe 26, 27. So could the board get a report, maybe not a hearing, but maybe just a status update report in 26 saying what the status is in 20, and maybe when it's appropriate for a status hearing, what do you think would be a good date?
If I can answer, because that's more of a legal question, the district would support putting another status hearing. The reason we would support it as a hearing is in case there needs to be further modification so that it would get publicly noticed. But if there's no further modification, it could be heard on consent as just essentially a receive and file.
So what would be a status hearing? So it's
I think the district would support, what we have done is once a year.
Once a year,
So
okay.
around this time in 2025.
Okay, so that would be the change to the proposed findings then. Okay, I think that's the only questions I had. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Any additional questions? Ms. Verdugo Peralta?
Thank you. Having worked on the fleet rules when I was on the governing board, this was very important to me, that the cities with the fleets of 15 or more would be part of the landscape, if you will, into the future. the roadway into the future. And we knew at the time that not all of the technology existed. However, it was also supposed to remain open in the sense of considering and looking into. And the Technology Advancement Office was very good about making sure that the possibilities would still be there. I understand what you're saying in regards to hydrogen and a flashpoint, and I'm assuming it's for the one that's going to be in the tunnel area,
You're right,
correct?
yes.
But have other feedstock technologies been looked into, like electrolysis or anything like that at all? I just don't want to see, I don't want to close any doors, in other words. I want, because the intent was to welcome and try to look into and encourage the new technologies. So are you just closing the door to fuel cells completely, or are you going to still consider that with another feedstock?
Well, I mean, for this particular order, I think that, as I said, most of the non-high rail vehicles have been, as far as I know, with an exception of a couple that's in the order, have been replaced with CNGs. So what's remaining, as far as I can tell, are all high rail vehicles. So which means I think that I need to check. I think I can definitely defer this to LA Metro, because I'm sure they have more expertise on what's operable inside the tunnel and what's allowed. But I think that could be maybe an issue for them to consider hydrogen or the fuel cell vehicles for the operation inside the tunnels or the high rail vehicles.
Mm-hmm. Well, I understand that part of it, not wanting to utilize a gas as the feedstock, but through electrolysis via solar, I would think that there would be an avenue there. Not to mention on the other vehicles as well, we all know that the CNG is not the cleanest. It's still a pathway there.
Right.
But I would have liked to have seen more vehicles, and I know that they're costly, so there has to be a partnership between the OEM, AQMD, because at the time we were giving out monies, but I don't know whether they continue doing that or not, and the end user. So I know that there's a lot of CNG on here. I just would like to have seen more technologies utilized, whether that was, like I mentioned before, fuel cells, and on the ones that were not going to be obviously in the tunnel area, that at least that would have been considered. I'm wary here that the whole intent of the Rule 1196 was a technology advancing type of a rule, that not all of those technologies are being looked at and utilized.
Well, I mean, no, actually, I have to beg to differ on that. First of all, our stance is technology neutral. We don't really care for whether, particular technologies, one way or another. If they are available or, commercially feasible, we'll definitely support that. But again, I think in terms of demonstration of any feasible technology is more in the on the side of the Technology Advancement Office work. They are the one who actually run all the demo programs and funds those programs, which are very costly, by the way. Our team, basically within the confines of basically the resources that we have and the responsibility we are tasked with is more of an implementation of fleet rules, which basically requires them to purchase at a minimum gasoline or cleaner engine vehicles to comply with 1196, for example. And in case of a violation, now when we are negotiating the settlement, I definitely concur with board member Verdugo's the comment that we should be looking into all the technologies possible. As I said, in this particular case, at the time we were negotiating, aside from the high rail trucks, even for the non-high rail trucks, what was available back then was, at most was an EV or the battery electric options platform, not the fuel cell options. And as you probably know, also the cost difference between battery electric and fuel cell, even now, is pretty high. Mm-hmm. So I think given the difference and when the end result is, like I said, is the same zero emission vehicles, I think as far as our fleet rules team is concerned, we're more than happy to accept the battery electric technology as an option. Let's say LA Metro or any other agencies will choose, as I said, because we're not TAO. So, if I were to say, still have a job in TAO and pushing for those technology, yeah, we'll be definitely pushing for demonstration of all different technologies available out there.
Thank you.
Any additional comments from members of the board? All right, Mr. Stam, just so we're clear, we have a hard stop for a break at 11 a.m. So if we can push, great, but the floor is yours, Mr. Stam.
Thank you very much. I would like to ask Mr. Tang a few questions if he could unmute himself. Mr. Tang, or can you hear? Okay, thank you.
Yes,
What is your position at LA Metro?
I'm the Senior Director of Non-Revenue Equipment.
And I'm sorry, you said Senior Director of Non-Revenue Equipment?
Department, yes.
A department. And specifically with regard to this compliance order with AQMD, what are your responsibilities?
My responsibility is to make sure we are compliant with the AQMD order by the order of the schedule and purchasing of the vehicles that's already in compliance with the order.
And when did you assume this position with responsibilities for complying with the order?
I took over on January 1st, 2024.
Now, I assume you heard Mr. Cho's explanation for why we're seeking a small delay in the EV pilot replacement vehicle program. Do you agree with his explanation for the delay?
Absolutely. Ever since I came on board, we've been sought out a vendor, and we got a vendor to work with us. Remember, they do this out of their responsibility for the public as well as for environment. We didn't pay them for any consulting fee, so they work on their manpower just to help us out with our vehicles need.
And also with regard to Mr. Cho's testimony regarding the CNG bucket trucks that we were supposed to purchase, but instead purchased gasoline-powered bucket trucks. Did you agree with his explanation for why that happened?
Yes, totally. One thing I want to add to is that we most of Metro vehicles are used for multi-purpose. For this particular truck, we also use it for towing generator around, portable generator that weighs roughly about 16,000 pounds. So we do want a stronger, more powerful trucks. I can see why the previous administration sat before me that decided to make sure we get the truck that we wanted it, although it's not a CNG.
So is that the reason you can't use the CNG powered Ford F-550 that has like a 6.7 or 8 liter engine and you need a larger engine?
That is correct.
Now, do you know if hydrogen fueled vehicles, the high rail vehicles, let's say, could be used underground in a tunnel?
From the vendor we spoke to with trade shows and whatnot, this seemed to be the technology is there, but not for rail specialty trucks and vehicles.
And is that also the case for fuel cell vehicles?
That's correct.
Now, in the replacement schedule for most of the Category 2 and Category 4 vehicles, it says that Metro is to acquire the cleanest vehicle available. If technology improvements occur and there are cleaner vehicles available in the future, even cleaner than CNG, would you consider purchasing those cleaner vehicles?
Oh, absolutely. I think Metro bought a mandate that will go all out electric vehicles in year 2030, I believe. That was the board mandated. So just to add to that, any vehicle we purchase, 25 of our vehicles from here onwards going to be an EV. So we do look for not just EV, but any other cleanest technology that we can have for our vehicles. Absolutely.
So if the EV pilot program is successful, you intend to acquire more electric-powered, heavy-duty commercial vehicles?
Without a doubt, yes.
And generally, I notice in the summary of changes to the vehicle replacement schedule, some of the target dates for releasing bids and taking delivery are being extended. Generally, can you explain why those dates are being extended?
Just based on the conversation we have with the vendors that outfit our vehicles, and I think Brian touched upon it, it's about 18 months to 24 months. So based on that schedule, and then we're confident that we move the date further out, so to make sure that we are in compliance with the order.
Have the vendors given you any reason or explanation as to why it's taking longer to deliver these vehicles?
Yeah, so these vehicles have outfitted at different locations. I mean, some of our vehicles would outfit it in Canada just because it's specialty vehicles. And I don't think they have experts here and locally that can do the work. The parts are, come as far as from Europe, so in Germany and France and other areas. So due to that, and that's one of the reasons they kind of have us a long lead time. And then plus the supply chain issue as well.
How confident are you that LA Metro can now achieve the dates that are in this proposed revised schedule?
From speaking with the vendors that we're in contact with, I'm very confident, bar from we having another COVID. But with the dates we have, I think we're really confident we're going to achieve what we put out there.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Ms. Robertson Cross.
Yes, just a couple of questions. Good morning, Mr. Ting. Thank you for appearing here. I'm going to pull up so that to kind of facilitate our conversation, the exhibit that the district submitted as exhibit number 9. Are you able to see this exhibit?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to focus on one of the changes that we're making that we haven't really discussed yet is that we're clarifying in all of these numbers for years that there's an FY in front of any of those year dates. That stands for fiscal year. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And respondents' fiscal year runs from July to June on the calendar year. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So just to orient us, right now in LA Metro's fiscal year, we're actually in Q1 of fiscal year 2025 for LA Metro. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So looking, for example, at the EV pilot study, that's the category 3 vehicle on this replacement schedule. Right now, as we're proposing to modify it, it's going to require you to release a bid in Q2 of fiscal year 2025, correct?
That's correct.
So that's coming up really just in a matter of a couple of months.
Yes.
And respondent believes that we can achieve that and get that bid released to start that process of procuring this vehicle?
Yes.
Great. And that's true of all of the vehicles on here that have fiscal year dates that's going to run. So even though that varies a little bit from what we would expect from a calendar year, all of these dates are going to run from LA Metro's fiscal year.
That is correct, yes.
Great. Thank you for that clarification. And could you just walk us through your understanding? We heard from Mr. Cho what he understood as to the delay for these vehicles and specifically with this high rail vehicle. Could you explain that from your perspective for us?
Sure. Again, I'll go back to where Brian's mentioned about specialty vehicles, and they are. We're not only compliant with AQMD South Coast, but we also have a CPUs that we have to comply with in terms of our vehicles. And one thing we want to do is to avoid prevent derailment. And Metro lines had some of the nearest and sharpest curvature on our line. So we want to ensure these vehicles are safety for our employee and safety for the public. So with that, there's not too many vendors that would work on these specialty vehicles. So we do find a couple vendors that they wouldn't be able to bid up for our job because of the fact that we wanted the narrowest rail gear on our vehicles with the vehicles that we need to do our work. So with that being said, is that during my time in this position, we had spoken to a vendor that came out to our track. We went out there and did a demo on it. That's going on for like almost 4 months just to get something going because we want to make sure that the vehicles we bought are not only in compliance, but also make sure that it's being safe on our tracks for our employees and the public.
Okay. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you, members of the board. Any questions? All right, okay, at this point, there's no questions from the members of the board, all right. Did you have any additional witnesses? Mr. Stam?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right, again, members of the board, any additional questions? All right, we'll move to close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The district believes that there is ample good cause to issue the modified stipulated order that the parties have proposed today. The district does want to clarify that I would like to make the changes recommended by Mr. Balagopuan in his questioning, specifically to attachment A, vehicles numbers 21-1121 and 21-1126. Those columns should be replaced with, instead of C and G, should state gasoline because those is the vehicle type that was actually purchased. And the district believes that a further status hearing is warranted in this, and the board should continue with its prior practice of setting these approximately a year out. So somewhere in the August 2025 frame is reasonable in this case. And the district believes no other further modifications from the party stipulation are warranted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stam.
Thank you. We agree with district council that there's a good cause for this amended order. We are working diligently to meet the target dates in the proposed revised vehicle replacement schedule. We are submitting quarterly reports to district staff. And of course, we are happy to appear before your hearing board a year from now to report on the progress we're making over this coming year. Thank you.
Thank you, members of the board on deliberation.
I do believe I can find good cause for the proposed modification to the stipulated order abatement with the changes that were mentioned. And I think the date for a year ahead, 2025, August 7th, I just checked. So it's a Thursday, so I'm not sure but that can be changed.
Yeah, we
can set a date
yes,
for August 7th.
You're right.
And just one other change. I think Mr. Payment's not here. Ms. Macklin is here, so that'll change to the proposed finding decision document. But other than that, I think from what we've heard from the testimony from Mr. Cho and Mr. Tang, I think I do believe good cost can be found for the modified stipulated order abatement.
All right, Mr. Verdugo Peralta.
Thank you. Other than the concerns that I already voiced about looking into other feedstocks for a vehicle that has to be in a tunnel, and my other concerns in regards to the overall utilization of so many CNG vehicles versus trying to go to battery electric vehicles. I understand the cost of fuel cell vehicles is tremendous still. And it is on well, it would have to be another pilot study, I would suppose. But other than that, I do encourage the fact that we're doing this at all. I'm happy we're doing this at all, and that LA Metro has been a good partner and has been very willing to work with the AQMD to try to come into compliance as well as to project into the future. So with that, I would also be supportive.
Thank you very kind. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion in the matter of Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority, Facility ID number 43758, case number 5874-2. I move that we find good cause to grant the modified stipulated order for abatement as set forth in the proposed findings and decisions relative to Exhibit 8.
As amended.
As amended. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Been properly moved to second by Dr. Abraham. Any further question or discussion? Hearing none, Dr. Abraham.
Aye.
Verdugo Peralta.
Aye.
Ms. Conacher Macklin.
Aye.
Mr. Balakapalan.
Aye.
Ali votes in the affirmative. The matter has been approved unanimously. Thank you very kindly. This case is closed. We will set August.
No raised hands.
No raised hands for the record. We adjourned 10:53 a.m.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
We gotta go to each slide.
Yeah, 36 years old, lung cancer, never smoked a day in her life.
So. Hey, Dave, we're off the record, sir.